Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
To be customer-centric in your contact center, you need more than feedback. You need performance management and trusted agent scorecards, which is exactly what you get with the award-winning external quality monitoring program from Customer Relationship Metrics. Get over the hump now by going to customersgradethecall.com/fast and getting a $7,500 rapid results package for free. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I have somebody on the show who reached out to me because of some of the guests that we have and the areas of expertise that we highlight on the show, and he himself is a subject matter expert. Paul Cole is an East Coast transplant to Los Angeles that spent his formative years in New England, calling Boston home for more than 25 years before moving to Paris, France for several years. Being one of 6 children, Paul's self-directed style traces back to the first big hump he faced in his life, the untimely death of his father when he was a young teenager. Paul quickly learned that it was up to him to make the right choices. Having made it through college but lacking true ambition, Paul was fortunate to find a mentor and role model in his first job in market research, who helped instill needed confidence and inspire him to succeed. Paul has spent the vast majority of his career in the professional services market, creating, innovating, scaling, managing, and leading large consulting systems integration and outsourcing businesses. The common thread across the last 30 or so years in these varying roles has always been the focus on the customer. Paul also co-authored Customer Connections, New Strategies for Growth. Paul recently made a big career leap without the parachute to entrepreneur, opting to join Incuba, a CX software company, as president in North America with responsibility for rapidly scaling the 6-year-old business in the United States. When not on a plane crossing the globe and enjoying reading historical fictions, Paul is most relaxed behind the lens of a camera and working hard to keep his body and spirit in shape. Paul Cole, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Sure am, Jim.
All right, so I've given our listeners a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you better?
Sure. Aside from the Tetons where I am at the moment and skiing, I'd say on a more relevant basis, if I was to use one word, I'd say growth. I'm about growth. Personal growth, and that I'm always curious and trying to learn new things, which is reflected, I think, in the variety of roles that I've played in my professional career. And then I think also just as a discipline in the work that I do for my customers, I learned after managing lots of budgets and P&Ls that what I do get most excited about is really helping companies grow their top line and do a better job of acquiring and developing and retaining their customers.
Thanks for sharing that, Paul. You and I have had some really good discussions here of late, and one of the things that kind of stood out to me when you were speaking is something that you didn't mention, which is in the past few seconds, and that is the word boldness. And when you start talking about seeking new things and the growth piece, sometimes those things can just kind of come to you, or you can take a leisurely stroll and obtain those. But that isn't necessarily going to fuel some of the, just say, significant growth that is possible for a lot of folks. So when you think about boldness incorporated with what you were just saying, what comes to mind?
Well, I know in prep for this, and we talked a little bit about the topics, and there was something in there about a quote or a mantra. And, I like to say carpe diem, seize the day, seize the moment. And I think that's where, that is about boldness. I think people need to extend themselves, put themselves out there. I think too often in large companies where I've operated, people will tend to be on the sideline or observers of a process, or if somebody is taking a position, they'll let somebody else take it, even if they feel strongly. So I think, one of my pieces of advice for young people coming up is, if you're going to show up, make yourself known and show up to add value. And that means putting yourself out there and being bold in a positive way. Right.
Definitely. I just had the opportunity to read an article and see Seth Godin do a TEDx speech talking about what we do in regards to the education system and what we do in organizations in regards to, either nurturing, and really it was more undermining, some of that, get yourself out there, creative thinking, collaboration, the boldness piece, and we try to get people to comply. It's fall in line, it's get on board, it's you need to buy in. And so when you start talking about coaching other organizations, when you start talking about even your own, development as you've gone along and where you are today is, how do you combat or balance that out so that the best does come out?
Well, and I think it's a different world today. I grew up in a little bit more of a command and control business environment. You were presumed stupid until proven otherwise. Your boss was your boss, and you kind of would follow the lead without question. And I think today's millennials or whatever, they come with a point of view. They don't just accept requests as orders. So I think leadership requires more finesse these days in order to get people to do what you want them to do and to have that be their own idea. And I think leadership is all about bringing along other people and getting them on board in a way that motivates them, as opposed to dictating that somebody do something as an employee. And that requires you to have more empathy. I think it requires you to know more what motivates people, and to get more into the kind of the emotional IQ of the situation.
There's another word that you had said for me that kind of stood out and that's finesse. And when I start thinking about a lot of senior level leaders in organizations and a lot of some of those folks who, have some of those bright ideas, but yet need a lot of the support, they need a lot of other people in order to round out and have some of that occur. Finesse doesn't come to mind. Right. I start thinking finance, ain't a whole lot of finesse there. I start thinking, legalities and legal teams and lawyers, and so, not a whole lot of finesse there. So when you start talking about finesse, how do you nurture finesse?
I think again, it comes down to your success will come by helping to bring out the best in other people and helping them be successful. So I think it's a little bit of a leap of faith. I think business is business. I mean, it's transactional. Money is changing hands. It's commercial. It's high pressure. It's intense. But within that, I think there's opportunity to distinguish the how you do what you do, and the way in which you do inspire and cultivate and nurture people. And I think in today's world, that really gets recognized. I mean, that's how you end up getting followers, right? It's not through brute force anymore. It's through bringing people along and collaborating with them and connecting with people on many different levels. And I think, that was a big lesson learned for me. I was a bit of a bull in the china shop for the first 15, 20 years, climb that corporate ladder, take no prisoners, get ahead, be decisive, be quick, without as much attention to all the corresponding impacts that it had on people, without a lot of reflection. So I think, as maybe it's just maturity and age, but as I look back, I think, that piece of finesse added to the drive and the boldness, when you put those two things together, I think you have a really strong formula for success.
So I started thinking about kind of putting a signature mark to that and saying, backed by wisdom.
Yeah.
And we have to go through our life experiences in order for those things to occur and to kind of see that clarity. And so that means there's a lot of humps that we have to get over before those things kind of occur. And one of the beauties about the show is that guests share their stories on one they've had to get over a hump, and hopefully we can learn from those too. Can you think about a time where you've had to do just that and it helped gain you that wisdom? Can you share that story?
Yeah, I mean, I think, probably the hump is a metaphor for just, challenge and unexpected events that one has to deal with on a daily basis. And I guess they can be speed bumps or they can be mountains in terms of the size of the hump. Probably one that comes to me is the difficult decision I had to make to fire a customer. And, being a customer guy, that doesn't sound like the most obvious or comfortable thing to do, but we were managing an outsourced customer care operation. And despite repeated attempts on our part to engage the client in better ways of working together to satisfy them, and also, I think, give us a little bit better predictability and motivation internally, we just couldn't get there. And we felt that they were using the KPIs as not just as a stick, but as a way to invoke penalties to reduce their pricing. And that's a difficult conversation to have. And in fact, the client at the end of the conversation finally had asked me, "Are you firing us as a customer?" No one's ever fired us before. I said, you choose who you do business with and how you want to do business. And I think we just are not in a position to be able to satisfy the way you want to do business. And it's also not consistent personally with the values that we apply to how we do business. And so we tried to, we negotiated a reasonably amiable separation, but that was very difficult to do. And but I think my team stood back and watched that, and I earned some respect for that because I was protecting them. I felt that this was a nearly abusive kind of relationship, and it wasn't satisfying us, and it was creating attrition issues and adding too much stress. And I had to make a difficult economic decision. I gave up multiple seven figures of revenue, millions per year, and which was going to hurt me because I had to go out and find a way to replace that. So it required a lot of thought, but at the end of the day, I stood on principle, and I felt very good about the decision.
Well, thanks for sharing that story. And I would dare to say that there's probably a lot of folks that story resonated with. And so I know that, for me, there's some that I've wanted to, but there's that financial decision. There's, all of these other things that kind of scare you not to do that. But, unfortunately, it is the right thing to do. It's because of all the things that you had talked about. And like, I can only imagine, like you were mentioning, how the employees, saw that happen and what it actually meant to them because you just made them, more valued than, what that dollar was that was coming in. I mean, that was huge.
It wasn't the outcome that I had wanted, or I think the client had wanted. So in some ways it was, we didn't get over the hump necessarily. But I felt good about we had exhausted the avenues that we could pursue to try to come up with a better compromise, and it just wasn't in the cards. And so we acknowledged that, and we moved on. And ultimately, I think the team felt pretty good about that, and we did replace the revenue, and we went forward.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is that to focus on the what's next instead of what's behind, and sometimes that's difficult to do. So when you started thinking about the actual interaction where that moment came, and it was that client finally coming to that self-realization, "What, are you firing me?" I mean, what was the dialogue that occurred?
I think the tendency at that point for big corporations is to almost kind of fall back into legal mode, because you're talking about contracts, you're talking about lots of money. And there are lots of terms and conditions of these contracts. So I think the other thing that I felt pretty good about was we were able to avoid all of those typical, traps that you'll fall in a separation when neither side is thrilled with, what you've got to do to get it done. So we just maintained dialogue. I tried to, keep it as professional as possible. Tried to say, okay, let's make this as easy for both of us as we can. Let's put it on a time schedule that works for you. Let's remain true to the spirit of the contract in terms of delivering against the KPIs as best as we can. In the meantime, we had a heavy oversight of our people and trying to keep them motivated once they learned that the business was going to go away. So you have to make sure the transition is smooth. People don't drop the ball. And I just think we paid attention to those details. And I think it was probably professionalism. And it was on both sides, thankfully. When it came down to this decision, ultimately, I think we both did the right thing, and I'm glad for that.
So, you said something about the spirit of the contract. I've had those words used against me, which were basically take all of your clothes off because I want every stitch. Right. And it's in the spirit of the contract. Yeah. So, those words kind of bring a chill down my neck.
Well, and likewise, this was a client who in the earlier days was using the word partner. You're our partner. And, those words get tossed around quite, casually. When you think partner, you think two-way, you think give and get, you think collaborative. And this relationship was anything but that. But they would couch it all under, okay, you're our strategic partner. So well, then why are we having these difficult conversations about behaviors? And so spirit, partner, it's all at the end of the day, it's reflected in what how people actually behave versus what they say.
Yeah, I think that behavior component is really key. It's and in my 12-year-old daughter, I get the opportunity to, unfortunately mention to her, I know you're not saying anything, but when you're turning your head away from me and you're rolling your eyes to the top of your head, I know what you're saying inside. So I know, Paul, that, going through that process, I'm sure it wasn't a quick, easy decision, but when you start thinking about growing into that and also how that affected many other decisions you've made since then, what is one particular conclusion that you wish you came to faster?
I think it's to when you sense that there's an issue emerging, that you tackle it more quickly. I think we allowed ourselves to continue to believe that this would resolve itself, that the relationship would get itself on track if we just continued to do what we thought were the right thing. So I think it's a matter of being sensitive to when something gets off the rails and being very quick and kind of proactive in trying to take that on, not let things develop to the point where it becomes a crisis. I think that's a conclusion that I would have reached. But we may have ended up with the same outcome. But I think had we maybe moved a little faster, a little earlier, with a little bit more decisiveness, that perhaps we could have avoided that outcome.
Thanks for sharing that, because I think that's also one of the things that we try to accomplish on the Fast Leader Show is that, people can use the experiences of others. They can hear about these things and hopefully not let things linger, because when you have situations like that are just, negative, they become toxic over time. And knowing and being confident on how to address those sooner and making the right decision at a better time instead of a later time, could help us all. That's for sure.
I think it speaks to your use of the word bold, in the beginning of our interview. I think it's a different illustration of boldness. Going through those uncomfortable moments, but going through them nonetheless, in order to try to resolve the issues expediently and early on.
So you had talked about the work that you're doing, with this organization that you're now part of, and everything that being an author. I think we even talked about a couple of other things that you're working on. But if you started looking at all of the things that you have on your plate and where you're headed, what are some of your goals?
Well, I think in the immediate future, I've come out of the big corporate world, where I was probably always viewed as an entrepreneur. And now I've kind of stepped out and I've taken that leap, maybe without a parachute, into true startup, or I'd like to say scale up, but still very, very entrepreneurial environment, in taking a company that's existed in other parts of the world and trying to ramp it up quickly here in the U.S. So I think I'm excited about that challenge. What comes with that is the recognition that I have to do a lot of things that I haven't done for years. I'm the chief cook, bottle washer, and everything at the moment. But it's exhilarating in that I'm free to make those decisions. I'm working with a great team in South Africa with a great product, and I think for me it's just about executing on all the things that I think I've learned over the last 35 years and applying that in a very hands-on manner. And I think if in 3 or 4 years from now I can stand back and look at that, we actually really built a powerhouse CX platform company in the U.S., that'll be something I'll be very proud of.
Well, and the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Maximum contact center agent performance is impossible unless your customer is involved in grading and coaching agents. So make it simple for you and customers with the award-winning external quality monitoring program from Customer Relationship Metrics. Get over the hump now by going to customersgradethecall.com/fast and getting your $7,500 rapid results package for free. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Paul, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Paul Cole, are you ready to hoe down?
Let's go for it.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Funny enough, I think it's not having enough people to lead at the moment.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Probably something along the lines of your success will come by bringing out the best in other people.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I think it's being decisive.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
I would say other people have noted that I reasonably articulate, both in the written word and in public speaking. And I think in the world of SMS and so forth, in today's world, being articulate and being able to communicate effectively is a good tool to have.
What would be one book from any genre that you'd recommend to our listeners?
I'm not that big of a self-help type guy, but there is a book that I do have dog-eared all over the place, and it's by a guy named Eckhart Tolle, and it's called Now. And it's a very simple premise. It's, the past has already occurred. You can't lament it. It's gone. The future hasn't happened yet, so why stress out about it? Everything that you can control is in the now. And I just think it's a very good kind of practical set of guidelines for not getting too caught up in things you can't control.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Paul Cole. Okay, Paul, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you have been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take everything. So what one piece of knowledge or skill would you take back with you, and why?
It's funny. The name of your program, Fast Leader. It's a little bit ironic because I think I've always prided myself and be viewed as a fast leader, decisive, impatient, want to get to the answer, straightest. The distance between 2 points, straight line, and I think that generates a lot of positive outcomes. But sometimes it can make you put blinders on and not be as sensitive to all the things that are happening around you. So, and I don't know if a 25-year-old is generally mature enough to have the presence of mind to say, I'm going to be a fast leader, but I'm also going to be a thoughtful leader. And I think if I were to go back and say, what would I kind of adjust on the margin, it would probably be bringing more reflection and thoughtfulness into my fast leader mentality.
Thanks for sharing that, Paul. And you bring up exactly what we're trying to accomplish. So that concept of fast and quick is what a lot of people resonate with. But the fact is that it's what you just said you need to grow into that actually will help you move onward and upward faster. Paul, Absolutely. It was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Sure. You can reach me at paul.cole@incuba.com. Or certainly I am out there on LinkedIn. I'm also a member of the CXPA.
Paul Cole, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.